On March 30th, the Yulee Bugle spoke with Nassau County's Director of Planning and Economic Opportunity, Mr. Taco Pope, about the recent development and construction in Yulee. Many folks are of course concerned about the lack of amenities and facilities as houses keep going up, and these are concerns that Mr. Pope takes to heart.
The biggest issue that I have, that I feel like the biggest problem, is that we have lost context for what we do. If you lose context, you lose perspective. And so you lose the why of what we do. Ultimately, what's our goal? What are we trying to accomplish here? Our goal is to create quality of place that begets quality of life. So we want to create these dynamic communities that are engaging, that inspire the day-to-day interactions and social engagement that have been lost over the last half century. So, functionally, what can we do to make a difference? What can we do to improve the situation? It's difficult to get a direction to where you want to go if you don't know where you're at. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to establish a baseline. We started looking at what can we do to arrange development in such a way that it mitigates some of those impacts that are less desirable, one of them being traffic. Right now, if you live off of the Concourse or Chester or in Wilson Neck off of Minor, if you want to go shopping, there's one location that you can go really in Nassau County, and that's up to the intersection of State Road 200 and Chester. So once we had the baseline, we started looking at potential, what can we do? And so we started looking at the network in the big picture and narrowing down where can we have new roadway extensions, where can we incentivize development to have a more efficient and more effective and more dynamic environment for people to live, create that quality of place and then ultimately the quality of life. And so we started focusing about a year ago on the William Burgess corridor. We were successful through the state legislature securing appropriations for $1 million to do right-of-way acquisition as well as design to extend William Burgess from US 17 east to Minor Road. So that's going to allow, from a traffic pattern standpoint, all the people that are in Wilson Neck, Yulee Middle School, Yulee High School, to have direct access west to 17, but then also William Burgess up to the Wildlight community and I-95. And so instead of everyone in Wilson Neck and the schools going Minor Road out to State Road 200, there's now going to be a direct connection west and functionally creating a parallel corridor south of State Road 200 that runs on an east-west axis.
While right now we can see the road construction and the influx of new shopping centers down A1A, Mr. Pope emphasized that the main goal of the Department of Planning and Economic Opportunity is building communities.
Specifically within the William Burgess area, we created what's called the William Burgess District. And so this is back to how do you create those dynamic communities? How do you create places where people want to be? The misconception is that the community is the buildings. The community is not the buildings. It's not the neighborhood. It's not the housing development. The community are that social interaction, those social connections between the individuals that live in a particular place. So how can we create places? How can we inspire? How can we manipulate the built environment to therefore inspire those day-to-day connections? And so for the William Burgess District, the first thing we did is back to context. You establish context, you look at the historical significance of the area, what are those characteristics that you want to save and you want to make sure survive into the next era. So with the William Burgess District, given that it was centered on CSX rail line, it's centered along Harts Road, with Isaiah Harts Road going from Jacksonville up to St. Mary's, where it intersected with Yulee's railroad, that was a Harts Road station. So ultimately the Harts Road station became Yulee, and so only fitting that we can take that vintage railroad theme and apply it in a new and modern way. And so the first thing we said is, okay, placemaking. We have lots of places in Yulee, like big parking lots, say, let's use Publix parking lot example, but no one goes to the Publix parking lot to hang out because that's not somewhere that people want to be. The difference, though, look at downtown Fernandina, when they have the Dickens on Center, the Shrimp Festival, or you have the Railroad Days in Callahan. You have these places that by design people like to be. So how do we recreate that? How do we create somewhere where people actually want to come and hang out and socialize and interact with one another? A lot of people don't think about it, but one of those really key aspects is social spaces. So not necessarily parks, not necessarily formalized or programmed spaces, but just places where you can be and you can sit and you can hang out and you can do nothing. You can drink a cup of coffee, you can read a magazine, and those spaces are really important to incorporate into your design. Also, the recreation component of it, you have these open spaces, and then a public art element. So again, it's getting people out of their cars, creating spaces that people want to be in, and then providing the type of environment where they can have access to recreation, access to basic services, to retail, and they can live all in one location. And if we can apply it, and if it actually comes to fruition, you could solve multiple problems with one initiative. And that's the idea. Think bigger, think more holistic, and solve lots of little problems with bigger initiatives.
If you'd like more information on a specific development, such as the William Burgess District, plans are available online at nassaucountyfl.com on the Planning and Economic Opportunity Department's webpage. Do you have any questions or concerns? Let the Yulee Bugle know on our Facebook page or send us a tweet on Twitter. We're the only news truly for Yulee.